Hey, it's Noxie, and today I'm going to be telling you the tales of the office job, which is just me basically talking about the crappy things I dealt with when I was still at my old job. So thinking back, this job wasn't bad. I worked in an office, processing payments and checking over everyone else's payments to make sure the money brought in matched the money that was recorded. There was an element of customer service, but it really wasn't all that bad, because now that I think about it, these stories all came from my coworker, singular, not plural, and upper management, specifically one person. And we'll get into that in just a moment. So I have 3 mini stories that I want to jam pack into one video. So the first one really isn't a story. It's just me venting about frustration, how I was treated differently just because I was younger. My old office was business casual, and I know what that means, and I know what clothes are allowed. So I wore business casual and wore clothing appropriate for the category. There were other older women in the office who did the exact same thing. Now, one day, when I had transitioned from part-time to full-time, my boss calls me into his office and says, "Noxie, you're doing a great job, but I was wondering if I could ask you for help on something." And me, being the eager sapling that I was like, "Yeah, sure. What do you need?" And he proceeds to tell me that since I'm younger and have a baby face, his words, not mine, I need to work extra hard to dress up and look the part of an office professional. He suggested that I start wearing heels and other things like that. Now, I was completely blindsided by this. I wasn't expecting him to call me out on the clothing I was wearing, especially because it was already work appropriate. He called me out for wearing boots to work, which I was confused because a majority of the other women that worked in my office, albeit were older than me, were wearing boots similar to mine. So in my shocked stupor, I managed to reply with something along the lines of, "Yeah, sure, I'll look into it." Now, this job didn't pay me a lot, and they didn't pay me enough to justify going out to the store, buying new shoes, and then hurt myself by wearing heels, because I've tried the whole heels thing before, and I've bruised my heel, which is the worst, because you can't walk using your heel, and that just isn't worth it to me. Okay, so now I'm going to segue into the next story, which is about that singular coworker, and we will call him Greg, which isn't his name, but is what we will be calling him for the rest of the story. So I'm going to start out by describing this human. He is around 15 years older than me and was married. So one day, while I'm still a part-time sapling, I'm at my desk and he says to me, "Hey there, you seem like you're in a good mood," which was an astute observation because I was, in fact, in a good mood. I smile and explain that I had just seen my favorite movie in theaters for the 3rd time and I had planned to see it again that same evening. It was Kingsman, and I was living. He's like, cool, yeah, I've heard of it." So I start, working, and he goes, "We should go see it sometime." And I say, "No, you should go see it with your wife." He pushes again, "No, I think it would be fun. You say it's really good." And I say again, "No, you should really go see it with your wife." He awkwardly removes himself from the conversation, and then the next day sends me like this paragraph of explanation, apologizing for saying that and hoping I didn't feel uncomfortable, and just going on and on and on. Okay, so this next part is drawn out over the course of the next few months or even years. So before I describe it, I'm going to equip you with a little comparison. So I have a cat, his name is Mayday, and he is Chaos. As a result, I don't let him into my room because there are many things he could break, and ultimately my room isn't cat-proof. So I just don't let him in, and he knows, and I know he knows. Sometimes if the door isn't closed all the way, he'll smack his face against the door and let himself in, cautiously slinking forward, making sure he's not caught, and then the moment he is caught, he bolts for the door. That is exactly what Greg would do. He starts out with small, harmless compliments sprinkled in maybe once a week, like, "Oh, my shirt's nice," or something harmless like that. Without pushback, he'll start complimenting other things, like, "Oh, your perfume smells good," or "Your hair smells nice." Okay, still pretty harmless, but alright. Then after that, he'll start leaving notes on my desk, calling me gorgeous or beautiful, to which then I have to be the adult and say, "Hey, I don't like that. It makes you feel uncomfortable. Please stop." And he stops for a while, and then it starts again, like my disobedient cat going where he's not supposed to. And it's like he knew. Greg knew he was walking this fine line that was annoying, but not quite enough to get him into trouble. Okay, so the third and final story I'll touch on is by far the worst, in my opinion. So I had a boss, and my boss had a boss, and my boss wanted me to do this new thing with spreadsheets. So he gets a sample of data, slam dunks it into my email, and says, "Hey, make a chart." So I do, and it's awesome, and he loves it, and he wants me to get more data to make more charts. But for some reason, his boss is gatekeeping the data. So I've emailed Mr. Boss's boss before asking for it, never got it. So one day on a Friday, and this is important because we are consistently understaffed on Fridays, and I'm very, very busy. My boss comes in and says, "Hey, have you made any new spreadsheets for me to see?" And I say, "Nope, I haven't gotten the data from your boss yet." He nods and goes, "Can you please email him for the data?" And me, thinking nothing of it, agrees that I'll email him. Which why I had to, I don't know. He's his boss, not mine, but whatever. So being understaffed and very busy on the phones, I wrote out a quick email in between helping customers. And it was literally this verbatim. "Hey, I was wondering if you could send over some of the remaining data at your earliest convenience. My boss really wants me to get up with finishing those spreadsheets. Thank you." I literally thought nothing of it and continued on my day. A few minutes later, I see in the other room my boss's boss walking toward my boss's office, and I apologize if this is very confusing. I never got a reply to my email, so I just figured they had something to talk about. A few minutes later, my boss calls me into his office, and I go over, reluctantly leaving my desk because, again, we are very understaffed and I'm handling everything. In his office is my boss and his boss, sitting on the same side of the desk. They gesture for me to take a seat, and I do, slowly growing confused because this is starting to feel weird. My boss's boss takes a sheet of paper and slides it across the desk toward me. On it, I can see a printout of the email I had just sent, and it has this one marking on it, a red circle. And inside the circumference of that little circle is a tiny little 3-letter word. Hey. He had printed my email, circled the word hey that I'd unthinkingly used as a greeting. After a brief moment, he breaks the silence by saying, "This is so disrespectful. You will never, ever address me like that in an email ever again." So at this point, a lot of things are going through my head. One, you pulled me away from my busy day and this hectic work so you could berate me over the word hey. Two, this wouldn't have even had to happen if you had given my boss the data to begin with, instead of gatekeeping it for whatever reason. Three, I usually always begin my emails with hello, but this was the one time I was so desperately busy I was typing this email as quickly as possible. Oops, I had used a slightly shorter word. My bad. And 4, really? Is your ego so fragile that the word hey causes you to descend 4 floors down in the elevator, show up at this office, and call an emergency meeting? I obviously can't say any of these things, so I look at him and say, "I apologize. It was not my intention to disrespect you. It won't happen again." He repeats it for whatever reason, and I repeat my same thing, that I apologize, and it won't happen again. After I'm finally allowed to be released and he leaves, my boss tells me in private that he didn't agree with what Mr. Boss's boss just did. Yeah, that's great. Would have been nice to hear while we were there with him in your meeting room. But I couldn't say that, obviously, so I just replied with thanks. And then over the next years while I worked there, Mr. Boss's boss would always find something to comment about. Again, it was always about my appearance, whether it was the shoes I was wearing or something else like that. Again, everything I wore was already work appropriate, so it didn't really matter. So that's pretty much it. I don't work there anymore. I work at a different job and I'm a lot happier there because they draw attention to the things you do well instead of trying to nitpick every single small thing that's wrong and even looking for things that are wrong that aren't wrong to begin with. Now, the thing with what Greg did, I feel like I should have told someone about it, but I was always like, it's just a compliment. It's not really that bad, is it? But the thing is, it made me feel uncomfortable, so I should have said something. But yeah, so that's all I have for now. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you next time. Bye!